Okay.
runs a class at Chapman.
Oh, cool.
Freddie Long was my student. Bernie Sue was my student.
Oh, cool.
And I started my own school since the colleges down here.
We're actually about
Here.
to start the panel here in a second. I'm so sorry about
Nice.
Yeah.
that. What was your question?
The Beijing Film Academy, which is what Nuts Over Us. Yeah.
Okay.
#2 film school in the world. They hired us to do the promos for the Olympics. The Beijing 2022.
Well, platforms are
playing on TikTok now.
I don't think they will because they're owned by different companies. It's,
Awesome.
Yeah, we're using
I can
VR,
actually talk
of
about that
course.
later in the panel. Yeah.
Speeding it all up. So,
Very cool.
time with you after.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll kind of start here in a second. Boom, 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 boom. All right, folks. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Zach James. This is my good friend, Matt Gillian.
Hello, how are you?
I'm going to kind of wait for the doors to shut, then we'll kind of pick it up here in a second. All right, so basically, give you a quick rundown on what this semi-panel's about. Matt and I, we've been in this industry, I've been in this for 10 years now. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the visual media industry since graduating from college, which I guess was, oh boy, 12, 13 years ago now. So, yeah, but on YouTube primarily for about a decade. Yeah.
Okay, so basically the two of us combined, we have about 20 years of experience on YouTube. We've known each other for about 5 or 6 years, about 5 years, 6 years. Kind of give you a quick rundown on who I am and what I do. 10 years ago, I started up YouTube as a YouTube vlogger. I quickly transitioned into a producer role where I hired a bunch of other YouTubers, in this case animators and voice actors. And I started up an animation studio that became pretty successful overnight. Through the animation, that's how I met Matt. Matt can probably give you a better rundown on what he does.
Yeah, so when we met, I was at a company called Frederator. If you haven't heard of Frederator, they produce cartoons like Wow Wow Wubbzy, Fairly Odd Parents, Adventure Time, My Life as a Teenage Robot. And then on YouTube, things like Bravest Warriors and then Bee and Puppy Cat, which when we funded it, had the third largest Kickstarter of all time, raising just shy of 900 grand for 9 episodes of Bee and Puppy Cat. Was at Frederator for about 3.5 years, and then went and started my company, Little Monster, and that was about 3 years and change ago. And we help people and brands build audiences on YouTube, primarily through interpreting their data and giving them recommendations to perform better on the platform.
There you go. Good little book cover. So when you look at being in an industry for 10 years, especially something like YouTube and social media, digital media as a whole, something so young can be very volatile, and it can shift and change really fast. And as a content creator that's been here for 10 years, I can tell you there's probably maybe a dozen or so people that I still recognize in this space as being successful, still doing what they did from day one. And when you look at those challenges, not just from an algorithm shift, but from a personal shift, when you become a different person, when you grow up, when you start off as a teenager on YouTube, and then you start to approach your early 20s, your late 20s, you begin to think differently. And that's where we kind of begin to talk about things like creator burnout. So there's a lot of things that can be very challenging in these past 10 years and these next 10 years. Everything from a technical perspective, like an algorithm, to a physical perspective of just being a living human being trying to keep up with the algorithm. Yeah. And you've seen a lot of changes over the years.
Certainly.
And you haven't always been a fan of those changes.
This is true.
But we both come from the animation world. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest changes that challenged us was watch time. Mm-hmm. You ran a network full of animators, different animation channels. I was part of that network for a while. From your perspective, how many animation channels kind of fell off the grid once watch time came in?
That's hard to say, because we started the network right around the time of the change in the algorithm to watch time. Like we were maybe, I don't know, I was maybe there for 6-8 months when they made that change. And our network was only 100 channels at that time. And by the time I left, it was over 3,000. I know that there was quite a few high-profile channels that had made it like their primary revenue stream, that were very upset about the changes and decided to no longer create content for the platform. Now, a fair number of them still actually continued to make content for the platform after saying they were going to quit, in no small part because their content wasn't necessarily solely promoted by the quote-unquote watch time algorithm. They made highly shareable content, right? And anytime your content is bringing people to the platform, especially YouTube, starting watch sessions and keeping people on the platform after they start that watch session, YouTube is going to promote that almost no matter what the length is. But that said, there was definitely, I would say, at the very least, I would estimate somewhere around 30% of the top 100 animators just left. But then there were animators like you who adapted.
Yeah, so kind of give a quick side note there. I'm not actually an animator per se. I'm an animation producer. I hire the animators. But in that regards, it's actually really challenging for me as a person because I have to worry about money a little bit more than most people. So a lot of the animation channels and a lot of content creators across the YouTube space, they are their one-man, one-woman business. They'll handle a lot of it from beginning to end. They might bring on an editor or someone to help out with filming, recording, things of that nature. But for someone like me, I'm working with a team ranging from voice actors to animators to audio engineers. Got social media manager now on my team, bringing in an editor, bringing in a few more people on my team. But to be honest with you, I definitely spent over $2 million making videos since I've started.
Yeah.
And that expenditure has definitely gone up rapidly in this past year as we scaled up as a studio. But I think in a lot of ways, as a content creator, it's been in this space for 10 years. And knowing how you think, I feel like there's a lot of things that I do as a person, as a content creator, that a lot of content creators are not necessarily doing for themselves. And I say that in regard of seeing content creators like animators fall off the path that they were on as the industry shifts and changes. And I don't think it's necessarily luck per se. I think it comes down from kind of looking at everything from a bit more of a business perspective, a little bit more raw into the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Math doesn't lie to you, unless you're really bad at math. Then you're just lying to yourself, really. But like Matt over here, I have to look at the algorithm every day. Matt was doing it from a network perspective. I was doing it from a content creator perspective. And when you look at the algorithm, you discover really interesting things that you get excited about. And when I get excited, I like to share it with people. I'll talk about it on Facebook, or I'll sit down and have dinner with somebody. Matt will turn into a presentation at VidCon, and then some tube filter article and a video. But I'll be honest with you, when I talk to a lot of creators really don't care, which is kind of weird. I mean, some do. They act like they care in the sense that they care about their success and their failure. But when you sit down and you're like, hey, have you looked at a click-through rate yet? And they're like, no. Should I care about that? And as you know, the number one rule on YouTube is if they provide you data for it, it's probably going to be really important.
Yeah, for sure.
What's one of the most important data points that you think really exists right now on YouTube?
Well, definitely the click-through rate, as you mentioned. Is everybody familiar with what click-through rate is? All right, so click-through rate at a basic level is the number of people that have clicked on your video divided by the number of impressions that video has gotten, right? And that seems pretty straightforward, right? The higher the click-through rate, the better it is. The problem is that that's not the case. The real answer is that click-through rate is relative, right? And click-through rate is relative to your own channel, and it's also relative to the platform as a whole. So as it pertains to your own channel, if YouTube puts your video in front of 50,000 or 100,000 people, right? Let's say your audience is 100,000, right? And 10% of them click on that, you have 10,000 views, 10% click-through rate. If YouTube shows that video to that same 100, or another video to that same 100,000 people, but you get 20% click-through rate, you'll get 20,000 views. What then ends up happening is YouTube shows it to more and more people within your audience, less and less targeted people, right? And then it goes beyond people that have watched one of your videos before, right? And during this process, what's happening is you're getting more and more impressions. And as you get more and more impressions, they become less and less targeted, and so your click-through rate begins to drop. So you might have a video with 1 million views with a 1% click-through rate and another video with 100,000 views but a 10% click-through rate. Well, the 1% click-through rate actually was better within your core audience and was better for the platform as a whole in terms of expanding your audience, right? The one that has 1 million views. So it's not as clear-cut as better click-through rate equals better video or better programming choice or better thumbnail or better title, right? You have to take kind of all the context into account when looking at your click-through rate. Because the ultimate goal, really, when you post a video is essentially for that video to generate more and more views and expand your audience in that way. And so click-through rate is paramount, and click-through rate is paramount because you can't get any watch time, right, or average view duration if people don't click on your video. Which is kind of the number 2 metric, is average view duration. How long people are spending watching your content. That relates to how long people are spending on the platform and that sort of thing. And so definitely the 2 metrics that we look at the most, just from a YouTube analytics perspective, is click-through rate and average view duration for sure.
So see, right there, as a content creator, there's a part of me that goes, I listen to those metrics. I'm listening to click-through rate, and I'm thinking, okay, well, are my titles or my thumbnails right? And then I hear average watch time, average view duration, and I think, well, are my videos getting the right, are they really capturing people? And I start to think more from a production standpoint. And I think in a lot of ways, probably my tip as a creator, whenever I deal with any type of algorithmic shift or any type of big change in the industry, whether it's demonetization as a whole, or the whole, now you got to tell YouTube whether or not you're making a video for a kid or not. So when you kind of go through this as a content creator, you sometimes feel like you have to maybe change things up if they're not working.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, think about it. I'm making bite-sized 15, 30-second animated cartoons on YouTube, back in 2011. Then the watch time algorithm comes in. Well, then how the hell did I do so good? Or let's say there's demonetization and my revenues got cut down by 80% for 18 months because of my brand name. But why am I making so much more money now? Or with this whole YouTube kid thing going on my cartoon channel, but why am I not worried? See, I think in a lot of ways, creators, they think about all these different issues across the industry or all these different metrics to hit in the algorithm, that they fail to focus on creating the type of content that they're best at creating.
Sure.
Because I think in a lot of ways, creators that chase after trends or topics or algorithm changes, they fail to continue to create the content they should be creating. In a lot of ways, in my case, just by focusing on the content I was able to create, I was able to repurpose that content and actually beat the algorithm every time it's changed, because I have that back catalog of evergreen content.
Yeah. Well, the bigger context, I think, of what you're saying there, or the kind of the bigger takeaway for me would be that you also understand your audience from a intuitive level and from a programming perspective, right? Like a lot of the channels that you see blow up on YouTube, I don't want to say a lot of times it's not luck, that's not the word that I'm looking for. It's this intuitive sense of what people are going to enjoy, and that allows that content to spread very far, right? Most people don't take the more analytical approach and say, okay, we'll use the Yo Mama channel as a reference point here. Is everyone familiar with the Yo Mama YouTube channel?
Pretty straightforward.
It's Yo Mama jokes in cartoon form, right? And so in that channel, if we were to look at the data, right, there would probably be certain trends that pop out, right? Oh, your audience really responds well when you have movie references. The audience likes, more positive nature jokes, like your mama's so smart, than some of the more negative ones, right? And from that perspective, you're able to hone in on what's really working, which, having spent 10 years on YouTube, you kind of, one, get intuitively, now you also bring the analytics to it, but for your average YouTube creator, most of them are just thinking about that probably more intuitively, right? And less from a statistical perspective. So just so we know kind of who we're talking to here, just show of hands, independent YouTube creator, content creator type? Big number. Media company-ish type? Okay. Women's lifestyle. Men's lifestyle?
Where are you going on vacation?
Non-specific genders. Any particular verticals, just shout them out. Automotive, beauty, slice of life, comedy, celebrity, politics. Interesting. Hopefully you're on the good side. General entertainment. So if I am celebrity, right? I probably find when I do a video on Kim Kardashian or Justin Bieber or Harry Styles is going to be on SNL, those videos outperform videos that are talking about other celebrities, right? That's a programming choice that you're making, where your YouTube channel is actually far more like a news show, right, or a blog, than it is a TV show like The Walking Dead or CSI or that kind of stuff. And to think about your YouTube channel in the same way that the people who program NBC's like nighttime lineup think about how they're programming their channel is the right way to think about programming, but your YouTube channel is very much not a TV channel in any way, shape, or form. But when it comes to video choice, you have to think about it that way, right? Where if you have, SWAT on at 8, right? Another like police drama or serial drama, maybe a medical drama, following that is going to perform far better than if you put, a comedy family sitcom right after your heavy SWAT drama, right? Because you want it to line up with the audience that's already there. In the same way, if on your YouTube channel, on your Yo Mama channel, right? If all of a sudden he did Grapes of Wrath, right, as a play, the audience that's on his YouTube channel watching animated Yo Mama jokes is going to be like, what the hell is this, right? They're not there for that. And so from like a programming perspective, I think that's where a lot of creators fall into issues on YouTube and can't respond in the same way that you can respond algorithmically, because it is about kind of just like, here's what's hot now, and you ride that trend up, and then, right, people stop playing Fortnite or stop playing Minecraft as much, and they're left with a channel that no one's interested in watching the content on because it wasn't a programming choice, it was just what was hot in that moment.
Exactly, and that actually it's very funny. It's ironic in the sense that making a decision like that could lead to a quick spike in viewership, a quick spike in growth, but long term, you're actually developing creator burnout. Yeah. When I first began YouTube 10 years ago, I was one of, back in my mind, I was like second generation, but to a lot of people, I was like one of the first people to make a living off of YouTube. And I was doing pretty well. I was talking to a camera like a vlogger, and I was pulling in views, was pulling in great money, but as I kept chasing that, what was working for YouTube and for my audience, but not necessarily what was working for me as a content creator, I was getting burnt out. And I'm pretty funny in the sense that I'm able to avoid burnout before it actually happens, because I always do it like once a year. I know how to avoid it. But to shift over from a content creator to almost becoming a content creator producer has helped me to avoid burnout in a lot of ways by creating and expanding a team. But I was able to take a step back and focus more on delegating and working with creators, and that's what really made me excited as a content creator versus being in front of a camera trying to be famous and be my own brand. And that also levied out a lot of creator burnout. And I think what's really funny to me is that a lot of content creators that kind of get to that certain stage, and I know people way bigger than me that make way more money than me, and they don't hire people to do certain things for them that will just necessarily help them. And not everyone here is going to be like that. You know, you're saying, well, I'm not at that point yet. You know, who do I hire first? Or what first step do I take to avoid creator burnout? First step is, you know, focus on programming. Don't chase after trends, focus on the programming. And my side note with the programming is it helps to create evergreen content. If you have something that can work today and tomorrow and a year from now, as the industry gets more competitive and tries to buy content for licensing deals, exclusivity deals, whatever, to build up the library, you become more valuable as a content creator, and you can avoid burnout by repurposing your content like I can. But then when you start to ask yourself, how can I build a team? And you built teams before in different ways. Yeah. I mean, at your company, over at Frederator, not just from like a technical perspective of a business mind or like, you know, make sure the business is running, but also from a programming perspective, from a production perspective. You know, you would actually hire creators in the network and listen to some show pitches and try to figure out the budgets and things of that nature. And the thing is, you don't need a lot of money to figure that out. You would know, you had to pinch pennies, I'm sure. You know, I pinched pennies back in the day, still do. And you just gotta be smart with your money and realize that focus on as a content creator, focus on what you can do for yourself as a content creator, but whatever you're getting the most exhausted or tired or you're not great at, that's where you need to fill in the gap immediately.
Yep. A guy named Daryl Eves, I was once having coffee with him and just asking about like how he built his business. I think this was kind of right at the start of Little Monster. And he said what he does is once a month he sits down and writes out literally everything that he did that month, like all the tasks, right? And then picks the ones that he likes to do the least and then hires someone to do those tasks. Mm-hmm. And that seems like, for me, with my YouTube channel, that we started for Little Monster, the one thing that I absolutely refused to do was to edit. So I studied film in college, and you know, when we were making our feature film, and for a little while I was in the indie film scene in New York, right? You would take little editing odd jobs, and maybe 7-8 years ago I was sitting down to edit something and I was like, this just feels awful. Like, I personally hate it. There's lots of people that absolutely love it, right, and love doing it. But for me, it was something where it was like, it was the same experience I had as a art PA on one indie film I was on, where everyone had kind of like broken for a minute, and there were all these flowers on the ground from the shot, and so I went through and started picking up all the flowers, only to have the director of the film yell at me saying, we weren't done with those flowers, you've ruined our shot, and like they had to like go and watch it and everything. And in that moment I was like, I should not be on a film set ever. Right? And so like there'll be these things that come up that are like, okay, yeah, someone else should do that. And for me, it was you know, stuff like editing.
Which is funny because on the flip side, and I want to say this because I hear a lot of people hiring editors. I hear this all the time. Only now does it make sense for me to hire somebody, because we take on so many sponsorship deals and brand deals, and we're uploading so much content always. We're uploading every day on YouTube, and we're gearing up for twice a day next year. And that's just YouTube stuff. We got everything across the board. But up till now, I handle all the editing. And you might be saying, well, why would you handle the editing? I'm indifferent about it. I'll sit there, drink a beer, maybe sip some whiskey, I'll be fine for a half hour. And then I'll just take everything I have like pre-loaded from like setting up my editing bay with all my different Yamama clips, and I just drag and drop them, put them into like a 17-minute video that I think flows really well, and render and upload, and I'm done. I'm done in like half an hour. So I don't need to hire an editor for that. It didn't make any sense for me. But as an animator, as an animation channel, I need animators. I'm not going to animate. I'm not going to spend 10 hours a day animating Yamama jokes.
Drawing 24 pictures. Gives you in 1 second.
Well, that's old school animation.
Yeah. That's all done on the computers now.
And in a lot of ways, you might be thinking, well, I'm not going to become the business. I'm not going to become a studio. I'm not going to become a production house. I'm just going to be me on camera. But you got to realize that as you grow an audience and as you get more opportunities, you will need a team at some point.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk isn't editing his stuff and filming himself and all that stuff anymore. He's got a team around him that helps him produce that content.
Exactly. Or like, let's say like Jake Paul, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think when you look at all the content creators, very few people like Shane Dawson might be the only ones that edit their stuff, and I think he does still edit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But when you look at that, the issue of creator burnout, and you look at the idea of the algorithm always changing, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what might be the next challenges? Because when I look at challenges in the past 10 years, you see demonetization, so money's always going to be at risk. Algorithms shifting, so your audience is always at risk. Creator burnout, so your mental health is always at risk. So what else could be at risk?
I don't know, you listed the big ones. No, I think, as it pertains to creator burnout, I think there's more consensus forming around what you've laid out, right? In the sense of like, if the ground is always shifting, you can never feel like, okay, I understand this, and if I keep doing this, then I'll keep doing well. The problem becomes is that most people creating content on YouTube, and I'm certainly not saying you're this way at all, they don't necessarily look at it as a business, right? They look at it as like, oh, it's just me on camera doing this thing, but then they come to rely on it and come to expect things, and for me, it's less, in most quote-unquote creator burnout, it's less about the platform really changing and much more about just audiences shifting, right? Like, there's a reason Will Smith gets 20 mil a movie, right? Because he's Will Smith, and he's super popular, and he's an amazing actor, right? Not a lot of Will Smiths in the world, right? And so, like, yeah, your star can shine for a period of time, and on YouTube, that can happen really fast, but in that same kind of, there's not a lot of Will Smiths, there's not a lot of Shane Dawsons, right? There's not a lot of people that have been on the platform for 10 years on their one channel, that have reinvented themselves, that have stayed super popular, are more popular now today than they were, 7, 8 years ago. And so from that perspective, I think what a lot of creators generate burnout comes from, okay, I've done this thing, things are kind of changing now, audiences are kind of changing, and they just want to keep doing the same thing instead of, evolving slowly over time, right? Or taking risk and taking shifts in their content. And then a lot of creators either can't for one reason or another, in the sense that it just doesn't lend itself easy to, or haven't thought ahead to monetize in ways that are not related to the YouTube platform. And so they're dependent on this thing as opposed to having diversified and having lots of different algorithm or monetization sources that can help prevent a lot of that burnout. Because what does that burnout come from? It comes from stress, right? It comes from the stress of knowing that what is, keeping, a roof over your head could just be turned off tomorrow.
No, that's very true. And to give like an example of that, so back in 2017, the adpocalypse happened. We all know what it was for the most part, basically. News story came out about ads on a bunch of extremist videos. Advertisers are not happy with YouTube about it, so they pull out their ads. YouTube needs to make a machine to figure it out overnight to make advertisers at ease. Hey, our videos are ad friendly, so we're okay. Well, my channel got hit pretty hard in a really unique way, but I won't go into that. But long story short, the Yamama brand name dinged my channel for 18 months because Google and YouTube considered it a maternal insult channel, and I was making like 80% less what I was making from YouTube. And okay, so I got bills in the sense of employees to pay, and I got to pay myself, and I got to try to make this work in the long run. So ultimately, as a content creator, I made a really hard sacrifice in the sense that, well, first I cut my pay in half. Second, I bought out my business partner, and third, I actually increased the pay of all my employees. And we sat down in a meeting, and I said, look, if we're not making videos, we're not making money. If we're not making money, we don't have a job. So if we're not making the money that we need right now, well, it sounds like we got to make more videos, we need more money. And I just kind of busted my ass there. And in a lot of ways, a content creator might look at that situation and get burnt out extremely quick, stressed out really quick, because content creators are very emotionally invested in what they do. And I see content creators that could avoid easy mistakes or take an extra 5 minutes a day to easily increase their viewership, but they're too emotionally invested to want to do that. In a situation like that, when you look at it from a business perspective, you can be happy with what you're doing, you can get an emotional joy out of it, but when you look at it from a business perspective and really crunch the numbers and really look at the reality of the situation and say, okay, well, this is my company, I want to save it, this is how I'm going to do it, you're able to get your head out of a funk and really just look at the reality of what you're dealing with. So instead of complaining about YouTube being YouTube, which I love to do, but it ain't going to help me, I can't pay my bills with that. So instead of complaining, I thought more like a business. I said, all right, well, I need more money. I need more revenue. I need more sponsorships. I need branding deals. Okay, I got 8 hours worth of cartoons. How can I create exclusivity deals with this back catalog of content? And for 18 months straight, I focused more like a business, less like a creator, in the sense of like happy-go-lucky, go with the flow. And fast forward today, my company is generating over $1 million a year versus where it was back then. And YouTube is 20, sometimes 30% of my total company's revenue. So yeah, it would suck if I lose YouTube, but I ain't gonna flop belly up overnight because of it.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
And I think in a lot of ways, content creators, they think, oh, think like a business, you know, let me just be an asshole. Let me take the joy out of what I'm doing. No, you gotta kind of say, okay, well, maybe I don't need to have a really fancy apartment for a year. Let me just kind of cut back. Let me find a place that's cheap with a good little room that I can film in. Let me save up money. The money I'm saving, I can hire somebody to help me make content, whether it's filming or editing or anything else.
Yeah.
Which means you can make more videos, which means you can make more money.
Yeah, and that's very sensible, but I think you're asking a lot of the guys who are throwing mattresses in their empty swimming pools and lighting them on fire for internet views to be that sensible.
Yeah.
And I think that's that also leans into the kind of the creator burnout phenomenon, where you see other people do something, and we see this time and time again across verticals. You see one channel do something, and then a whole bunch of other channels start aping it, right? And so then this channel has to go a little bit further and be a little bit more extreme, and then everyone else goes a little more extreme, a little more extreme, and a little more extreme, right? We've seen this time and time again, right? You see it with all the
Story Booth is probably the best example.
I don't know this one.
It's where they animate kids submitted stories, and Story Booth was like a legitimate, like, okay, we'll take your real stories and animate them, release them weekly. And they did really cool collaborations with like people like Superwoman, and it got views. Some company out of Russia started hiring people to write fake stories, like I'm allergic to air, and my boyfriend got my mom pregnant while having sex with me. Like these are like the titles of the videos. And they're releasing them every single day on YouTube. And now it's like oversaturated, because now there's like half dozen of these channels with these weird, crazy animated stories.
Yeah, they always get like way overly sexual too quick.
Yeah.
It's always like, let's go there first. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with like the Spider-Man and Elsa stuff, right? You see it with like, when pranks were really big, and it got to a point where like guys were pulling like guns on people in an ATM and being like, chill out, bro, it's a prank. It's like, it's not a prank. That is multiple violations of the law. Those are crimes.
Not if you admit to them in public. All right, bad joke.
That's for our political guy over there.
But sorry, we're kind of at this point now where we can take some questions. If you guys have any questions, we can do that here for a few minutes. You right there.
Can you explain more about impressions versus people just watching?
Yeah. So on YouTube, an impression is when your title and thumbnail are shown to someone, typically in browse or suggested or search. So those are the three kind of main areas, right? That's an impression of your video. A view is when someone actually clicks on it and watches the video. Whether it's 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, doesn't really matter. They have to show intention of wanting to watch your video. On Facebook, an impression is a view. On Instagram, an impression is a view, right? They just call them views because they want to compete with YouTube. And if my bias is showing, so be it. Same exact thing on Twitter, right? As soon as that video loads, they're like, oh, it's a view. Now in your analytics, it could be different where they say 3-second views, 10-second view, whatever, fine, cool. But it's very different autoplay versus click to play. And that was, the impressions part was the second part of the question?
You explained it. Before you were talking about the click-through rate, and part of the definition of that was impressions
Gotcha.
versus
Yeah.
watch time, I think.
Any other questions? Oh, wow, we got a lot. This guy, political.
All politics are domestic.
Okay.
So Matt, 2 years ago at VidCon, you had said that there was a specific time to publish, to schedule to publish, based on when the majority of your audience is watching. Then this past June or July, when it was, you had said that it doesn't matter until you reach a certain threshold, so you could publish any time because your video isn't tracked until you reach 250 views. What's the current status?
So you may have heard me wrong at this present VidCon. That was in regards to an unlisted video, right? So on YouTube, you can have a public video, a private video, and an unlisted video. An unlisted video means anyone with the link can watch it. YouTube considers your video to be live on the platform once it has 250 views as an unlisted, in the unlisted status, yeah.
How about when it's public? In other words, when is the best time to schedule?
So the best time to schedule is when the largest amount of your audience is on and is going to be on in the following hours of that video being live. So in the same way that Facebook determines how much reach a post is going to get based on who interacts with it early on, right? And how they interact with it early on, the same exact thing happens on YouTube in terms of a video, right? Where they look at every single impression, every single click, how long people watch, how long they don't watch, do they leave the platform, et cetera, from the moment the video goes live, essentially. And so what most viewership curves look like is, if your audience is like US English speaking generally, is that around 11 o'clock Pacific time, your audience begins to dip down. Around 3, 4 o'clock Pacific time, it usually hits its bottom, and then it kind of goes up. And if you don't post a video, it kind of stays flat throughout the day. Maybe you get a peak in the morning, or you have a peak in the early afternoon, right? And then it begins to fall off again into the night. What you want to do is at the beginning of that curve, when it's going up, is when you want to post. Right? So you get the highest number of people in those first few hours so that throughout the rest of the hours it continues to show it to more and more people so that your video gets its most reach they can in the first 24, 48, 72, 7 days, 30 days, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
How long is that window? Because we have a 3-hour disadvantage here on the West Coast.
Well, if you schedule a video, you can schedule it any time, but that window is specific to your audience. Right? So there are channels that I work with where the best time for them to post is 3 in the morning. There are channels that I work with where the best time for them to post is 3 in the afternoon. Right? It's all specific to the audience and the content and who you're trying to reach.
Probably the most straightforward way I've heard of it is just look at your peak time and then go backwards 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours.
I see.
So for me, my peak time's around 4 or 5, so if I get up by 1 or 2, I'm good. All right, question. Yeah.
I've been teaching about YouTube for about 15 years at USC and Kent University, and Matt is our most compelling speaker ever. Round of applause for Matt.
It's only because I curse a lot, that's it.
Yes. But that being said, what do you guys think of farming out work like editing, for example? Like one of my students created Express Edit, a kid named Arlo Dessler, and he hires student editors and then works with a lot of YouTube stars as well, and just is the interface between the two and gets it done. What do you think of that?
I think that was the best pitch of a service at a panel I've heard. That was good. That was good. It sounds like a really good small business. I would like his information afterwards.
Yeah, for me, I'm a little bit different. Everybody that works on my team is a YouTuber, or has been at some point. So, there's people on my team that have big audiences, and they have their own fan bases. So, for example, when I hire somebody to, let's say, edit for me, it's going to be another YouTuber who may not be as successful as they used to be, but they understand the platform well enough. So I like to have each person in my team to have somewhat of a similar background as me, because then they understand a lot of my decision making and are able to complement it or support it or properly challenge it with some sort of notion of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's great. I usually give my editors homework to like go and watch stuff on like TikTok or some emerging platform, because what we've seen time and time again on YouTube is that the styles that emerge on other platforms always make it onto YouTube and then kind of blow up on YouTube. And so giving them that kind of homework, like if we see something interesting on one of those platforms, like an editing style that we haven't really seen, or a content style that we haven't really seen very much on YouTube, like making them watch that to see if there are ways to like integrate that into like what we do for clients at Little Monster kind of thing. But that's a fantastic point. Like hiring people that just get and understand the YouTube platform intuitively from having done it for years is a huge, huge leg up.
And you can get them pretty cheap
Yeah.
to start, if you know what they live. Any more questions? Boom, no more questions. Oh, wait, no, everyone's raising their hands now.
How about her and him?
Lady in the back. Oh, sorry. I mean, yeah, it's just a general tool that I believe anyone can really use on YouTube. I know most media companies will do that, like with music and whatnot.
Yeah, it's just Content ID. If you're a large rights holder, you can probably get access to Content ID. If you're not a large rights holder, there's lots of companies that can do that for you. A company that's started by a friend of mine is called SuperBAM. I don't know why it's called SuperBAM, but really good guys that know what they're doing in Content ID. So yeah, that's been on the platform for 7-8 years. Yeah. So I think she had a question. He had a question as well.
Okay.
Basically, I was wondering, you may have covered it earlier, but you mentioned YouTube is only 20% of your revenue. Where else are you monetizing?
So I can't go into exact numbers for different contractual reasons, but I do get a good chunk of change from companies like Facebook who pay me to do exclusive content on their platform. In Facebook case, it's live streaming gameplay. I get a lot of sponsorship deals that are very easy to integrate with my audience. Merchandising is a new thing for us. It's actually been doing really well. And you just get a lot of random things that come in that just happen. But yeah, for the most part, there's different sponsorship deals, exclusivity deals, licensing deals. I've been doing that. Merchandising, physical products. Anything else?
I think that's the way most people do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've probably, from Little Monster's social footprint, we've probably generated high 6, very low 7 figures in revenue over the 3 years that we've been around, and that's solely from clients hiring us to consult, produce, or run their paid media, right? So nothing from AdSense. There's a lot of ways to utilize talking to people to generate revenue, right? And that's what YouTube allows you to do. It allows you to talk to people.
Yeah, so like in my case, I recently participated in a sponsorship / content production where it was a one-off, but a one-off scenario like that can pay a good few tens of thousands of dollars. So different situations like that add up pretty quick.
this kind of question. Is it worth advertising on YouTube? Huh. Oh, like to advertise a 1 or 2 minute or like 10-minute long video? I think it depends on how you do it and who you target. Generally speaking, if you want to build an audience on YouTube, we at Little Monster strongly discourage our clients from using paid to do that, especially early on, mainly because it has the opposite effect that it does on Facebook, right? Where Facebook's like, no, we're not going to show you to anyone unless you pay us, right? On YouTube, we're not going to show you to anyone if you pay us, right? And the reason why is that the revenue team on YouTube is completely separate from the algorithm team, and YouTube's designed to entertain audiences, and Facebook's designed to exploit audiences. So in that regard, right, it's completely different on YouTube. So for longer form content, if you are going to do advertising on YouTube, the recommendation would be to use video discovery ads. Video discovery ads are the ads that run at the top of search and at the top of suggested videos and sometimes in browse. And basically it just looks like an organic result from YouTube. That's going to go further than running it as pre-roll. Pre-roll does a really good job of either kind of just raising brand awareness generally, or as a conversion tool to some sort of product that can be bought digitally. Outside of that, I wouldn't use video advertising at all, because you can do anything you want to do, just utilizing the organic promotion on YouTube if you know what you're doing. So I think this guy and that woman?
I think, well, that woman in the back, I think, had a question first. Or, no, yes, yeah. Yeah, then the guy.
So the new kind of changes in terms YouTube rolled out now, every creator who went in seems very confused about whether marketing for kids means it's geared towards children or it's safe for children, which are two different things. They don't want to market also for kids content. Now, every time, I mean, what's going on specifically, and how are we avoid kind of getting on the wrong side of YouTube every time?
So in my case scenario, so this is really interesting because I'm an animated show. I talked to YouTube about this, and basically the general idea is it's not about creating stuff that's family friendly, it's about creating content that is directly geared towards kids. So like the Frozen Elsa stuff was obviously marketed to kids. Even though it wasn't family friendly, it was obviously marketed towards kids. I think
If it's something that's specifically targeted towards kids, right? There's black, white, and gray, right? Like if it's clearly not made for kids, clearly not made for kids, right? If it's nursery rhymes, clearly nursery rhymes, and then there's going to be this giant gray area that is going to take, I think, a very long time for everyone to figure out. My suggestion would be to not risk a $42,000 per video fine while they're trying to figure it out, and err on the side of caution. Or adjust your programming so it's clearly not made for kids. That said, it took them 10 years to find YouTube. They're really not going to be going after a lot of YouTube creators, right? There's going to be a few examples made, I'm sure, right? Chances are that's not you or anyone in this room, right? But if you don't want to risk it, then play it safe. So, there will be, I think, a lot more information coming out. You can stay on top of that. But at this point, no one, even YouTube, has a clear answer. YouTube doesn't fucking know, right?
No, even the FTC doesn't know. Yeah, that's why they're opening.
Exactly.
That's why they have people asking and giving them their opinions right now.
Yeah. That's a great point. So the FTC has this open for opinions and feedback, and if you are worried about that, you should there's links everywhere. Find that and leave a comment about it, because there are a lot of YouTube creators that are very, rightfully worried about what could happen because we don't have clear guidelines just yet.
I think they're getting ready to kick us out, but we'll take one more quick question. I'm sorry, can you speak up?
I was gonna say, I was like, it's not a question yet, but now it is. No. Without a lot more context, there's no real way to answer that. I mean, if you're reaching out through the general help and support through YouTube, you're probably not gonna get a lot of help. Even as a CMS owner, which is a content management system on YouTube, we still get a lot of automated help, and those people are fucking idiots.
Yeah.
So like, I don't really know what to tell you without more context, but yeah, I would track anyone down at YouTube that you can and try to get some answers, I guess. So.
What I will say is this, I think I know what he's asking. Sometimes okay, so when I go to my channel settings or my dashboard, I can go to channel or videos and I can see copyright notifications if I'm getting hit with copyright strikes. Or I can go into my standing and see if I'm being in good standard and had any community guideline strikes. So if you have like copyright strikes or guideline strikes, you should be able to find that on your dashboard somewhere.
Yeah, they will let you know.
Yeah. Can't. Oh, well, then that'd be more of a question for the employee.
I can't help you log into the account. All right, thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for being here.